Welcome back. Presuming you watched the passage plan in the making, now you get to see how it's executed. Before departing, I always make myself some notes before I go. This is Tuesday's notes, Wednesday's notes, and of course not forgetting Tuesday's and Wednesday's weather notes. Tuesday's notes are quite straightforward. Tide could carry us north or south a little bit, but it won't affect us much in the long run. Our forecast is for a north back in north-northwest. We'll be travelling west-southwest, which gives us a beam reach at the beginning, but then we'll turn west. And when we turn west, if it's north-northwest at that point, we might find it gets a little bit tight. Well, fingers crossed and we'll get a good sail in. Motoring through the boats as you're coming out of Portmadder is quite easy. Because the trots, they're just straight lines, they're not all over the place. And you look to pick your first buoy up, there it is. Saying goodbye to the beautiful Bertha Guest. And we find we've got light airs on the nose. I hope that's not going to carry for the trip. As we're departing the last green can going out the estuary, we've still got wind on the nose. 9 knots, so that's not give us anything of what we've been promised as yet by Mr. Forecast. That's Cricket on our starboard side as we pass the fairway buoy, with still only light airs on the nose. Well, looks like we could be in for a long motor. I think I'll get myself comfortable at the bow. It's the easiest place to look for lobster pots. It's beginning to warm up a little bit, so I think I'll get them shoes off. Oh, somebody's joined me and got their shoes off. It's hotting up for sure. We just ain't getting any wind. I think what's on the nose really is just what we're making ourselves. Lisa says it's more comfy in the cockpit, so she's off. But I think it's much nicer here. Never mind, I'll keep me lobster pot watch all on me Todd. I can feel a little bit of air on the side of my face now. I wonder whether the sails will work. Let's get 'em up and have a go. I wouldn't exactly call it a reach, but it's got a little bit of potential. Anything's better than running the engine though. So if we got to pinch a little bit in light airs to make our way, then so be it. We may as well make the most of it. It's slowly improving. We're getting a few more knots and it's veering a little bit, so it's filling the sails a bit better. I can get the telltales in line, so she's pulling quite well. As the time ticks by, she gets more and more wind in the right direction and starting to live a little bit truer to the forecast. Well, there's absolutely no wind by the coast, so if you were coastal sailing you wouldn't have got anywhere. It wasn't until we got off the shore a bit that we started seeing it, and now we are seeing it. We've got good pace over the ground, our 5 knots, which is all we need. We've got 25 miles, don't forget to go. So if we keep the 5 knots up, it's 5 hours in the bag. She's got a bit of a groove now, she's close reaching and she's loving it. But unfortunately, that makes it a little bit untenable to sit on the bow without sliding all the time. It looks like it appears that the weather forecast is right, and if it sticks to plan, we're going to get a good sail. Well, there you go, me and my big gob talking too soon. 20 knots and it's getting closer to the nose. With this angle of wind, I'm only just managing to hang on to 5 knots. The motion, however, is extremely comfortable. So I probably think I'll just sit and see what happens and go from there. All good things. Only a few minutes later and she's back up 5.5 knots. It's just a wind angle at a particular point in time, I think. Truth be known, I think when you sit in the wheelhouse, you haven't got your eye properly on the sails and you just need a little trim to get going again. Extremely pleasant outside. It's about 18 to 20 degrees. The wind though cools you down a little bit. Lisa's in the middle of a good book and she seems oblivious to the sea slipping by while she reads. Going back to our passage plan, which it's all about, and we wanted to be making our 5 knots and we've picked the wind conditions to hopefully do so. Well, that seems to be working perfectly. We departed around 12, which would mean if we keep 5 knots up we'll get there for 5. The wind speed showing 18.4 is pretty good. We were forecast 14 knots and don't forget we're pushing a bit of speed on that by going through the water as well, or over the ground at 5.5 knots at least. The wind, however, does start to increase a little bit. It gets up into the early 20s at some point, around 23, 24. And not forgetting that we've got some speed to take off there. There's still a good solid 20 knots here, I think. She was beginning to heel a bit, so I decided to stick a reef in the sails. It was a pleasant surprise. The boat actually picked up a bit more pace. I think Swallow is now teaching me that she likes to sail in an upright position. She doesn't like to heel much. She's faster like this and more comfortable like this. I feel I'm getting to know her more and more the more I sail her, and I'm learning things. She's got habits like anybody else. It's like she's trying to say, I don't want to be stressing, I just want to be taking it easy, and she'll do her best when she's taking it easy. That's what I'm finding. When the sails are slightly loose and the hull slightly upright, she just seems to slip along so well. Well, if we keep this up, it won't be forever before we're there. The sea sedators stayed really good all day. Although we've been sort of heading into it, we've had very little crashing waves on the front, and the sea stayed more or less a slight. So we've been very blessed and very lucky today. It's Abersoch just in the distance. That's an anchorage that we could have used if we wanted. These two lumps of land, two islands, they're called the Tudswolds, they are. Abersoch's the last place where there's moorings and boats round here before Bardsey Sound. Around that headland. I don't know much about St Tudswolds Islands, just that they call that one East. And the other one has got a lighthouse on top of it, and they call him West. Well, we've had to don the sails because I can't sail into Aberdaron. The wind's a little bit too tight on my nose for that. So, they're the cliffs just before you go into Aberdaron. There's a couple of lumps of rock, and you go between the lumps of rock and you're in. And that's Bardsey Island there in the distance. And obviously the Sound and the Llyn Peninsula. But keep your eyes open for lobster pots. Once in the bay, I like to drop my anchor just about here, in about 7 or 8 metres of water, and pay out enough chain so I won't drag. I think this part of the bay's got the best holding. Certainly the west side of the bay's got the worst holding. Well, I think that's a great big tick on the passage plan anyway. It seemed to have worked very well, and the weather worked like it should do. The tides have worked like they should have done. The boats worked like it should have done. Everything worked. We'll just have to see how we get on the next leg in part 3.